The moment her lips touched mine, everything changed. What started as a fake relationship to make my ex-wife jealous had somehow become the most real thing in my life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. If you're wondering how I ended up kissing my intimidating, impossibly beautiful CEO at my ex-wife's wedding reception while pretending to be madly in love with her, well, it's complicated. And if you want to find out what happened next, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories that prove life is stranger, and more wonderful, than fiction. I stared at the wedding invitation like it was a live grenade. Cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing, addressed to Daniel Hayes and guest. My ex-wife Melissa was getting remarried, just 14 months after our divorce was finalized. "You look like someone just ran over your dog," said a voice from my office doorway. I glanced up to see Vivian Chen, CEO of Horizon Technologies and my boss of 3 years, leaning against the doorframe. At 35, she was only 4 years older than me but had already built our company into a tech powerhouse. Brilliant, driven, and intimidatingly beautiful, she rarely ventured down to the marketing department where I worked. "Sorry," I mumbled, quickly sliding the invitation into my desk drawer. "Just some personal stuff." Vivian raised an eyebrow. "Personal stuff that's affecting your work. You've been distracted all week, Daniel." I sighed. There was no point denying it. My ex-wife is getting married next month. And that bothers you because she left me for this guy. Because everyone in our social circle will be there, pitying poor Daniel who couldn't keep his wife interested. Because I'll have to show up alone while she parades around with her perfect new husband. Vivian studied me for a moment, her expression unreadable. "So don't go alone." I laughed bitterly. "Right. I'll just conjure up a gorgeous, successful girlfriend between now and then. Or," she said slowly, "you could borrow one." "What do you mean?" "I mean me, Daniel. I could go with you." I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. "You want to pretend to be my girlfriend? At my ex-wife's wedding? Why not? I'm between relationships, you need someone impressive to make your ex jealous, and I'm curious to see what kind of woman would be foolish enough to let you go." A small smile played at the corner of her lips. "But you're my boss," I stammered. "Outside of work hours, I'm just Vivian." She shrugged. "Besides, it sounds more entertaining than the charity gala I was planning to attend that weekend." My mind raced. Walking into that wedding with Vivian Chen on my arm would certainly make a statement. Melissa had always accused me of lacking ambition. What better revenge than showing up with a self-made millionaire CEO? "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Vivian replied. "But I do have one condition." "What's that?" Her eyes locked with mine. "If we're going to convince everyone we're a couple, we need to sell it completely. That means one kiss. A real one." My heart skipped a beat. "A kiss? Just one. To make it believable." She straightened up, all business again. "Think about it. My offer stands until the end of the week." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving me staring after her in disbelief. I spent the next 3 days in a state of confusion. Part of me thought Vivian must have been joking. Why would someone like her want to help someone like me? But another part desperately wanted to accept her offer. Not just to make Melissa jealous, but because the thought of spending an evening with Vivian outside of work was intriguing. On Friday afternoon, I knocked on her office door. "Come in," she called. I entered to find her reviewing documents, reading glasses perched on her nose. She looked up expectantly. "I'd like to accept your offer," I said, trying to sound confident. "If it still stands." Vivian removed her glasses. "It does." "When's the wedding?" 3 weeks from Saturday. In Napa Valley." "Napa? So we'll need to stay overnight." She nodded thoughtfully. I'll have my assistant book 2 rooms at whatever hotel the wedding party is using. You don't have to. Daniel, she interrupted, if we're doing this, we're doing it properly. Now, tell me about your ex-wife. For the next hour, I told Vivian everything about Melissa, how we'd met in college, married at 25, and slowly grown apart over the next 6 years. How she'd complained I was too predictable, too content with my marketing job while she climbed the corporate ladder. How I'd come home one day to find her packing, saying she'd met someone who challenged her. Vivian listened intently, occasionally asking questions that cut straight to the heart of things. By the time I finished, I felt oddly lighter, as if sharing the story had somehow diminished its power over me. She sounds insecure, Vivian said finally. Needing external validation of her worth through her partner's status. She's not a bad person, I found myself defending Melissa. We just wanted different things. And what do you want, Daniel? The question caught me off guard. I don't know anymore. Vivian nodded as if I'd confirmed something for her. Well, for one weekend, what you'll have is a girlfriend who makes your ex-wife question every life choice she's ever made. I couldn't help but smile. Thank you for doing this. Don't thank me yet, she replied with a mischievous glint in her eye. You haven't kissed me. The weeks leading up to the wedding were surreal. Vivian and I met several times to coordinate our story, how we'd started dating 6 months after my divorce, keeping it quiet at work for professionalism's sake. She asked detailed questions about my friends and family who would be attending, memorizing names and relationships with the same focus she applied to business acquisitions. At work, nothing changed. She was still the demanding, brilliant CEO, and I was still the marketing manager who occasionally stayed too late perfecting campaigns. But sometimes I'd catch her watching me during meetings, or she'd stop by my office with a question that seemed designed to learn more about me rather than my work. The night before we were set to drive to Napa, I couldn't sleep. What had seemed like a clever plan now felt reckless. I was going to pretend to date my boss, my gorgeous, intimidating boss who could fire me with a snap of her fingers. And at some point, I was going to kiss her. That thought kept me awake until dawn. Vivian picked me up in her sleek black Tesla, dressed casually in jeans and a light sweater that somehow looked more expensive than my entire wardrobe. You look terrible, she observed as I slid into the passenger seat. Didn't sleep? Not really, I admitted. Nervous about seeing your ex? Among other things. She glanced at me. Having second thoughts about our arrangement? No, I said quickly. Just processing it all. Relax, Daniel. It's one weekend of pretending. Monday morning, we go back to normal. Somehow, that didn't make me feel better. The drive to Napa Valley took just over an hour, during which Vivian surprised me by asking about my life before Horizon Technologies, my childhood in Oregon, my college years, my dreams before reality had tempered them. I found myself telling her things I rarely shared, about wanting to write novels and travel the world before settling for the security of marketing. Why did you settle? She asked. Life happened. Marriage, mortgage. The usual. And now? I looked out at the vineyards passing by. Now I'm not sure what's stopping me. She nodded thoughtfully. Fear, probably. It's what stops most people. Are you ever afraid? I asked, genuinely curious. Every day, she replied, surprising me. But I've learned to use it as fuel rather than letting it paralyze me. We arrived at the boutique hotel where the wedding would take place the following day. As promised, Vivian had booked 2 rooms, but they were connected by an adjoining door. For authenticity, she explained when I raised an eyebrow. Anyone who sees us will assume we're sharing a room. The rehearsal dinner was that evening, though as guests rather than wedding party members, we weren't required to attend. Instead, Vivian suggested we have dinner at the hotel restaurant, where we might accidentally run into some of the wedding guests. Let's start establishing our cover, she said with a wink that made my stomach flip. Sure enough, at least I had this moment. Tell me something, she said as we slowed to a walk on our return. Are you still in love with her? Your ex? I considered the question seriously. No. I think I'm in love with who I thought she was, or who we could have been together. But the actual Melissa? No. Vivian nodded. Good. That makes today about moving forward, not looking back. The wedding was scheduled for 4 p.m. in the hotel's vineyard. At 3:30, I knocked on the adjoining door between our rooms, my palms sweating. Come in, Vivian called. I opened the door and froze. She wore a deep blue dress that hugged her curves before flowing gracefully to the floor, her dark hair swept up to expose the elegant line of her neck. She looked like she belonged on a red carpet, not at my ex-wife's wedding as a fake date. You look. I struggled to find words adequate to the vision before me. Convincing, she supplied with a smile. Beautiful, I said honestly. Melissa is going to hate you. Vivian laughed, a genuine sound I rarely heard at work. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. She stepped closer to adjust my tie. You clean up nicely yourself, Daniel. Her fingers lingered at my collar, and for a moment I thought she might kiss me then. Instead, she stepped back. Remember, she said, today we're madly in love. Follow my lead, and don't be afraid to touch me. A real couple wouldn't hesitate. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. We walked to the ceremony hand in hand. I could feel eyes on us immediately, former friends, Melissa's family members, colleagues who had chosen her in the divorce. Vivian kept her head high, occasionally leaning into me or whispering in my ear, creating the perfect illusion of intimacy. The ceremony itself was beautiful, I had to admit. Melissa looked radiant as she walked down the aisle toward James, the investment banker she'd left me for. I waited for the pang of loss, the jealousy that had driven me to accept Vivian's outrageous proposal in the first place. It didn't come. Instead, I found myself watching Vivian's profile as she observed the ceremony, the way her eyes softened at the vows, the slight smile that played on her lips. I wondered what she was thinking, this enigmatic woman who had inserted herself into my personal drama for reasons I still couldn't fathom. At the reception, we were seated with several of our mutual friends, all of whom were visibly shocked to see me with someone like Vivian. She played her role flawlessly, charming everyone at the table while maintaining constant physical contact with me, a hand on my knee, fingers intertwined with mine, her body angled toward me even when speaking to others. How did you two finally get together? Asked Mark, one of my oldest friends who had drifted away after the divorce. Before I could answer, Vivian jumped in. Daniel finally worked up the courage to ask me to dinner after we stayed late working on a project. I'd been waiting months for him to notice me. I nearly choked on my champagne. That's not exactly how it happened, I countered, deciding to embellish our story. Vivian had turned down every man in the company. I never thought I had a chance. You underestimate yourself, she said, looking at me with such genuine warmth that for a moment I forgot we were pretending. You were the only one who saw me as a person, not just a CEO or a potential conquest. There was something in her voice, a vulnerability I'd never heard before, that made me wonder if we were still acting. The moment was broken when Melissa appeared at our table, her new husband in tow. Daniel, she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. I'm so glad you could come. I stood, pulling Vivian up beside me with an arm around her waist. Wouldn't have missed it. Congratulations to you both. This is Vivian, my girlfriend. Melissa's eyes widened slightly as she took in Vivian, her poise, her beauty, the casual way she leaned into me. Vivian. Daniel mentioned you're his boss. CEO of Horizon Technologies, Vivian confirmed with a pleasant smile. But outside the office, we're just Vivian and Daniel. How, progressive," Melissa said, a hint of disapproval in her tone. "Office romances can be so complicated." "Only if you make them that way," Vivian replied smoothly. "When you know what you want, the path becomes quite clear." She turned to me then, her eyes holding mine with an intensity that made my heart race. "Speaking of which, darling, you promised me a dance." Without waiting for my response, she led me to the dance floor just as a slow song began. I placed my hands on her waist as she wrapped her arms around my neck, our bodies closer than they had ever been. "She's watching us," Vivian murmured, her breath warm against my ear. "They all are." "Let them watch," I said, surprising myself with the conviction in my voice. "I don't care anymore." Vivian pulled back slightly to look at me. "No. No. This whole thing, coming here to make Melissa jealous, it suddenly seems so pointless." "Why is that?" I took a deep breath. "Because I'm starting to wish this wasn't pretend." Vivian's steps faltered for just a moment before she recovered. "Daniel." "I know," I said quickly. "Monday morning, we go back to normal." "I haven't forgotten." She studied my face, her expression unreadable. "I think it's time for that kiss," she said finally. "Everyone's watching. It would be the perfect moment to seal our performance." My heart hammered in my chest. "Just one kiss, right?" That was the condition. "Just one," she agreed, her eyes dropping to my lips. I leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if this was just part of the act. She didn't. When our lips met, the world around us, the music, the crowd, my ex-wife's stare, all of it faded away. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but then Vivian's fingers threaded through my hair, pulling me closer as the kiss deepened. I forgot we were pretending. I forgot we were at a wedding. I forgot everything except the feel of her in my arms, the taste of her lips, the small sound she made when I pulled her closer. When we finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before, uncertainty. "Vivian," I started, not sure what I was going to say. "Not here," she whispered, taking my hand. "Let's get some air." We slipped out of the reception hall onto a terrace overlooking the vineyards, now bathed in the golden light of sunset. For a moment, we stood in silence, still holding hands. "That was," I began. "Convincing," Vivian finished, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. "Is that all it was?" I asked, finding courage I didn't know I had. "Because it didn't feel like pretending to me." Vivian turned to face me, her professional mask completely gone. "It wasn't supposed to be real, Daniel. That wasn't part of the plan." "What was the plan, exactly? Why did you really offer to do this?" She looked away, watching the sun sink behind the hills. "I've watched you for 3 years. You're talented, kind, undervalued, including by yourself. When you told me about your ex-wife, how she left because she thought you lacked ambition." She shook her head. "I wanted to show her, and you, what I see when I look at you." "And what's that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Someone worth taking a risk for." Her eyes met mine again. "I didn't plan on the kiss affecting me like that." My heart pounded. "How did it affect you?" Instead of answering, she kissed me again, a kiss with no audience, no pretense, just Vivian and me and the truth we'd both been avoiding. "Like that," she said when we parted. "I'm your boss, Daniel. This complicates everything." "Life is complicated," I said, echoing her earlier words. "But when you know what you want, the path becomes clear." A slow smile spread across her face. "And what do you want?" "To stop pretending. To see where this could go, the real us, not the characters we created for today." Vivian took a deep breath. "Monday morning won't be back to normal, will it?" "I hope not," I said honestly. She laughed then, a sound of genuine joy that made my heart soar. "Your ex-wife is going to think this was all an elaborate setup." "Let her think what she wants," I said, pulling Vivian closer. "I don't care anymore. This stopped being about her the moment you walked into my office with your outrageous proposal." As the stars began to appear above us, I realized that what had started as a scheme for petty revenge had become something infinitely more valuable, a second chance at happiness, with someone who saw me for who I truly was. 3 months later, Vivian and I sat in her office, facing the HR director across her desk. "So you're officially disclosing your relationship?" he asked, looking between us uncomfortably. "Yes," Vivian said firmly. "We've been dating for 3 months now." 3.5, I corrected with a smile. The HR director cleared his throat. "Well, company policy states that Daniel will need to report to someone else to avoid conflicts of interest." Already arranged, Vivian said. He'll be reporting to the creative director effective immediately, with a promotion to senior marketing manager. I looked at her in surprise. You didn't tell me about the promotion. I was going to surprise you tonight, she said with a small shrug. You've earned it, completely independent of our relationship. After signing the necessary paperwork, we walked out of the office together. Senior marketing manager, I mused. My ex-wife would be impressed. Vivian raised an eyebrow. Do you care if she's impressed? I laughed and shook my head. Not even a little bit. But I am grateful to her, in a way. Oh. If she hadn't invited me to that wedding, if I hadn't been so pathetically determined to make her jealous, I might never have known how you felt. We might still be CEO and employee, nothing more. Vivian smiled, taking my hand as we walked through the office, no longer hiding. I think we would have found our way here eventually. Some things are just inevitable. Like falling for your boss after she pretends to be your girlfriend? Like falling for your employee after he kisses you like he means it, she countered. As we reached her office door, I pulled her close for a quick kiss. Best fake relationship ever, I whispered against her lips. She laughed, the sound still my favorite in the world. Who's pretending now? If you enjoyed this story about finding love in the most unexpected circumstances, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming tales that remind us sometimes the best things in life come from taking chances. Remember, the most beautiful love stories often begin when we least expect them. Sometimes all it takes is one kiss to change everything.